Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Mishkin Santa. I'm very excited to be here today to talk to you about the Nexia regional conference that I attended in Denver. I'm going to do just a brief debrief of the conference, but I have a point that I'm trying to make with today's podcast, and I will get there. So first off, Nexia is the international network of accounting firms that the Wolf Group is a part of. It's a fantastic network. And given what's going on today in the private equity world, Nexia could be ranked anywhere between the 10th largest network to the 17th largest network. It changes all the time depending on who's getting swallowed up by private equity and kind of where the rankings are. But it's a very large network. We have sister firms all across the world. I'm not going to go through all the stats of the network, but the network has regional meetings for firms to attend. And so this was the North America meeting. So we had firms from Canada, Mexico, and the United States that attended the meeting in Denver. We had a fantastic and robust group of meetings and entertainment events. I was lucky enough to have my wife and my two kids there. I always tell people that the Nexia events are very much like family. We all know each other very well. And we all support each other. And it was great for my kids to get to meet a lot of the partners of all these other firms and network with them. It's my first time watching my kids. They're old enough at this point to where they can actually start networking and talking to various folks. And needless to say, I was a proud father watching all of that go down. A couple of big takeaways though that I want to talk about from the Nexia conference. The point of today's podcast, which is there was a lot of chatter. There always is a lot of talk of topics like private equity, which I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. But the big one that was brought to my attention was the use of artificial intelligence in the tax firms and the network. There was a lot of conversation about how different firms are using artificial intelligence, the technology that is being used, how staff inside each of these firms are using artificial intelligence. And I want to talk through some of the things that I think were, very important for the listeners of the podcast to understand with AI. So first and foremost, anything that you put onto AI through a lot of the free AI apps, I'm not going to give them names, but just remember that all that stuff is connected to the internet. And if you put your tax return, your personal information, even documents, your wage and income documents or documentation related to your income into artificial intelligence programs to do a review for tax purposes, that stuff all filters out onto the internet and can be grabbed by identity thieves. So be very, very careful when having AI examine your tax information with your personally identifiable information, because again, that can become part of the ethos and be attached by folks looking to do nefarious activities with it. Number two is that a lot of tax firms, including the Wolf Group, we all do have artificial intelligence software, most of which though is not linked up to the internet, is not going to get into the internet, and personally identifiable information will be maintained and looked after, and it won't get into, it won't pass borders, if you will. And that's where you really want a lot of your tax analysis to occur. So it's likely that if you have a CPA or an accountant and you want, an artificial intelligence review of your tax situation or tax question with your facts and circumstances, my advice is to go talk to your accountant and say, hey, can you guys do this internally through your artificial intelligence software? And tell me what it says and walk me through if you think that's correct or not. I think that will be, in the end, you'll get a better result from that, and you'll insulate yourself from having your personally identifiable information kind of put out there to the general world. As far as internally using artificial intelligence products in tax firms, a couple of things that I thought were super interesting. First and foremost, prompt writing is big. It's big time. I think everyone in the tax industry needs to learn how to write prompts, which can then, these are the ways that you ask the questions to artificial intelligence for the answers that you're trying to obtain. I think a lot of people think, if I give it a simple question, it should be able to give me the answer I'm looking for. But in the tax world, that's not the way it works. You have to be very delicate about how you write the question and the input that you're giving into the artificial intelligence. So for example, I will say, analyze this CFC, form 5471 for PTEP distributions. But then I've got to define CFC means this, PTEP means that. The schedules I want you to review are this, this, and that, and I want you to pay particular attention to these columns and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's a very, very detailed set of instructions that have to be given in the prompt writing. And some people call those skill sets, developing different skill sets for analyzing different structures, different forms, different filings. I think that's very important. I will say that I can forecast into the future that, my kids, for example, this is something that they probably need to be very good at doing. I don't think that they need to, I think in the last maybe 10, 15 years, it was all about, maybe kids need to learn more about coding language, and that kind of stuff. But I would tell you more so now, it's all about how do you use and interact with the AI? How do you do proper prompt writing, skill set writing, all of that stuff. I think that that's very, very, very important. What I will tell you is that these AI products, though, are very costly, very, very, very costly. So it's not like we're just getting a free AI product and we're using it internally at the Wolf Group. I mean, it is something that is adding an additional cost. And I think all of the tax firms that are using these AI products that are adding them in, if you're seeing your fees go up, that's one of the reasons why. It's because these AI products are extremely, extremely costly. They're not cheap. And the number of licenses costs money, and the cost, it's not just like a one-time fee. It's an annual fee, and the fees do go up over time. The other thing that I would highlight is that it's going to take more time to use these AI products in addition to what we normally do for compliance and consulting in the tax world, because you have to, again, you have to write the prompts, you have to write the instructions, you have to write the skill sets. You then have to, have the AI review it. Then you have to review what the AI came back to you with. You can't just take it wholesale that it's actually, the exact result. So there's still a matter of following up and checking it, documenting that it is correct, making sure that it's not creating a hallucination or giving you false information, because that is still a very real thing. So I think a lot of people will be saying, oh, well, you have the AI function. It should take you less time to do a tax return or less time to do a consulting project. And that should mean a smaller fee to the client. And I think based off of the last two things that I just told you, that's not the case at all. In fact, I think what will happen is that the fees will only go up to be able to do a lot of these exercises to incorporate the AI. So I guess my point there is AI one day will be able to jump a tall building in a single bound. So it'll be Superman, but not today. Today, it's more like baby Clark Kent that just landed in Kansas. And, our generation, the generation of accountants that's currently working with this stuff here at the forefront, we are training it to be, Superman. So we are at the very beginning of Smallville, if you will. And we are teaching it, how to use its laser vision and hearing and all that stuff. So that's my best Superman analogy. Anyone knows me, I'm a DC guy, but that's my Superman analogy for AI right now. I think it's going to be a big uphill push over the next couple of years to kind of get the AI to do what we want it to do before it starts making real big inroads into cost savings, time savings, things like that. So I want to make sure people understand kind of, where we're at with that. A couple other comments about the AI function. So I think a lot of people fear that the AI will take their job. I think, the commentary is, well, I can create a bunch of AI bots that can do the job of all of my people, and then what do I need the people? Well, I would contest that is simply not the case. I honestly do not think that the AI in and of itself I don't think it ever will be enough. I think it always has to have that human interaction, and I think it's better. I think you get a much better result in literally just about any area with AI and human working together. I think the AI has a limitation that human beings do not have. And that present sense perception, the AI can only understands what it gets from the things that it can draw off of, which is typically going to be stuff on the internet or stuff in a closed loop environment. It doesn't have the present sense perceptions that human beings have. So it almost needs our input into the internet to make it move and learn and grow faster. And so I think that the AI and the human being team up will always be a better thing. And I think that's the way that people should look at it. But I will say to a lot of people in the tax industry that you've got to evolve. You've got to, if you've been used to just kind of doing compliance and doing forms and turning and churning, but not really interacting with your clients or providing them any kind of value. If you don't know how to talk to a client, you don't know how to be in a conversation with a client, you've got to evolve that. You've got to be able, that's your value that you will have going into the future. That's the thing that will differentiate you from someone that just does, the forms and, work in, work out. I think that you need to, be very good at doing the prompt writing. I think you need to develop the skill sets. I think that those will evolve over time. You can't, I think a lot of the prompt writing and skill sets, that maybe you use today will not be the same ones you use tomorrow. They have to be constantly updated as the AI changes, as the fact pattern changes, as law changes. That's where I think the value comes in. I think it's twofold. One is understanding how to update those and keep those in tune with what's going on with law and fact. And number two is being able to really, talk to your clients and tell them what's going on. I've got a great example where I had a client come to me, and clients are doing this now. They're really using that AI like crazy, which is great. I think everyone should be using it. But I would warn the client, be careful about your personal identifiable information, going back to my original point at the beginning of the podcast. But secondarily, I've had clients that say, well, this is what the AI told me. And they don't really understand it. They don't understand what they put in. No offense to clients, but they don't really quite understand the outputs. They don't really understand the inputs. And I've gone to clients a couple of times and I've said, okay, let me see the prompt that you put in. Let me see what you asked. And then I'll tell the client, okay, go back to your, whatever you used. And instead of asking it what you asked it, here's what you should ask it. And here's exactly what you should tell it to do. And then let me know the result that you get. And the client will go back and do that. They'll come back to me with the result, and I'll look at it. I'll review it. I'll make sure that it's accurate. I'll say, yeah, that's the result that you should have gotten, or that's the result that makes the most sense, that lines up with the research, which is what I would have gotten just doing a kind of a manual analysis of it on my own. And that's really, I think, where a lot of value can be added is kind of looking at what these folks are putting in, what they're getting out, and making sure that it actually conforms with the proper answer. The last point that I'll make about the AI, because I want to make this just a kind of a mini podcast. I'm not going to go on a diatribe and talk forever and ever, but the AI doesn't have any licenses, meaning it's not board certified. It doesn't have a JD, doesn't have a CPA license. You can't sue an AI. You can't rely on an AI for the advice it gives you. So what I would tell a lot of people is be very, very careful about taking wholesale positions on what the AI is telling you. So, same as if you were watching someone on Instagram and those 10-second clips or all that, or the content that you get online. Trust but verify. Okay, you really have to go in there, do your due diligence, have a professional look at what someone is telling you or what the outcomes are in these types of things. Verify it, document it, put it into work papers. Work papers are, things that contain the facts and circumstances. They contain the analysis and the research done by the professional that has the license. Those are things that you can hang your hat on. That's what you really need to focus on. So my big takeaway, the Nexia annual conference in Denver, just to close the loop here on the original topic, was fantastic. I always have a great time seeing all my friends from, Canada and Mexico and the United States. And, like I said, we're one big family, Nexia North America. But I think that the discussion we had on the AI and the use of AI technology was robust. It was entertaining. It was informative. It was educational. I want to give big props out to David Friedman, who I thought did a great job. Friedman down in Florida, great firm. I think he really kind of summed it up very well, and he's an expert in this area. So big props out to him. But this is never evolving story. I'm sure I'll come back. I plan to have some AI experts come on the podcast coming up very soon. And then going forward, as I go to various conferences, because I go to a lot of conferences, I'm going to be doing more of these debriefs, talking a little bit about the conference, but also maybe raising some of the main salient points that I'm hearing, whether it's from speakers from the IRS or from, private speakers, talking about things that we're seeing, trends and all that stuff. And that's my way of keeping all of you informed as to what's going on. Appreciate you stopping by today. Thank you.